what we're going to be going over today essentially is how to get ready for Q4, the aftermath, the before, during, and after. This is a classic episode that we've done every year. We know that a lot of you benefit from this. We've got our two favorite goofballs on today, Eric and James, and we're going to go over a lot of topics. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me for another episode of our Velocity Sellers podcast. I'm your host, Velocity Pete. And yeah, let's get right into it. Like I said, it's a crazy time of year coming up. We're at the beginning of August. The day of recording today is August 4th. This will probably come out immediately. So, how far in advance should sellers be planning realistically? If you could pick any date during the year to say, let's really lock in, let's really not just like haphazardly planning, but really saying, okay, here's what our quarter 4 strategy is. Here's what we're doing. What time of year, Eric, do you think that should be realistically happening?
So two answers on that, right? I mean, the first one realistically is like immediately after the last one.
Right,
Okay.
right.
But like to be realistic, you got a lot of other things going on. You can't just be planning for 365 days to get to the next big event, right? But you should have that in the back of your mind. What did you discover? What were your findings? What happened? Were you up? Were you down? What did you do? That should be sort of what you should be focused on throughout the year, but then coming up here, you should start thinking fourth quarter immediately after Prime Day in July. Like immediately, because it's gonna go super fast. You got back to school here in August, and then September, you're already basically you got to be planning for inventory. You got to be planning for everything, because you got that big deal days in October, and then you go right into Black Friday, Cyber Monday in November, and then holiday in December. So you basically have 3 months of the fourth or all fourth quarter has big events inside of the Amazon marketplace. Um, so just to recap, July is a realistic answer, and then right after in November of last year would be like
Right,
the hope answer.
right. I was looking exactly for that realistic one, but you're right. The hope answer is, how did we immediately do? And I think you're right. I think looking back at the data is always, something that you should be doing as an Amazon seller. Again, you want to be able to get to Jeff's next wedding. And so if you're not looking at the data, you will not be invited. So, and James, you look like you have something thoughtful and provocative to add.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, Eric's right. It's almost immediately. In some cases, it's between 30 and 50% of a brand's revenue is coming in that Q4, right? So not only are you looking at data, you're also looking at, are you up for the year? Are you down for the year? Right? How are you going to make up margin, and how are you going to maybe explode in growth? Right? Those are kind of
Hmm.
the two questions that you're going to be answering. Um, so yeah, it's immediate, right? And I think any good seller or good brand manager is already, like Eric said, November. So after the event, so after Black Friday, Cyber Monday, so in December, you're already keeping that in the back of your head, right? What worked, what didn't work the past year, or throughout the year, what worked, what didn't work based off the data. So it's just it's never ending but there are certain times and days that you have to have, like Eric said, inventory in, but also these days you got to really, submit your deals early, to fix the errors that could possibly happen. So yeah, it's definitely all hands on deck right after July Prime
Right,
for Q3, Q4.
right. And what I've heard in the past, and maybe this isn't true, maybe you guys can enlighten me here, but what I've heard in the past too is that you shouldn't be looking towards these events like Prime Day and like Q4 or Black Friday specifically, as a way to make up lost revenue from the what your goal was. Like if you set a goal of we should be doing 1 million, they shouldn't. And then then you say, okay, we should be doing 1 million before we get to Q4, and all of a sudden you're at 750,000. You shouldn't be saying, okay, well we can make it all up in quarter 4. Am I making sense with that question? Is Q4, should that be looked at as, hey, we're behind this year. We can just use this to drive, to make up our lost revenue.
Well, you should always be thinking that, right? I think throughout the year, you're always month over month, or in some cases week over week, depending on the client, always are thinking, hey, how do we do better? Um, if you are down, whether it's because of loss of inventory, your production, whatever the case may be, and let's say you are down for the year, that potentially is a good, you know, we really don't have a choice because you got to make it up in Q3, Q4 anyway, right? But what else should you be doing at that point? But yeah, I think it's a great place to either make up numbers, or to really kill it. Let's say the client, his expectations is 20% growth and you're at 10% at the beginning of Q3. How do you make up that additional 10, right? Or how do you get a stretch of maybe 25%? So there's a lot of different variables in play there, but ultimately you want to use it. There's more eyeballs during that time period anyway, especially if it's a holiday or a seasonal based product, like a Q4
Right.
gifting
A
product.
nutcracker,
Some
perhaps.
Yeah, different clients, obviously you selling yard equipment, or that's the season's ended, right? That Q4
Right.
was this past prime, essentially. You
Right.
know what I mean? So really understanding when your seasonality is, and it could be your seasonality starts in January. So how do you get that push going into the new year, right? So yeah, so there's a lot of good strategies you can put in play.
Okay. Speaking of, unless Eric, you have something to add in there.
I always got something to say,
Eric always
like
has
we can.
something to lay out for us.
Yeah. I mean, like Black Friday, the reason why it's Black Friday, obviously everybody knows you're the first time in the year that you become black. Instead of being
Mhm.
in the red all year round, Black Friday, getting your books in the black, right?
Right.
So going back to my earlier response of saying like, hey, you should be thinking about Black Friday, Cyber Monday, the day after the Black Friday and Cyber Monday of last year, right? Because what's going to happen there? Because like if you're trying to make up margin, you're not going to be able to make up margin in Black Friday, Cyber Monday because everybody expects you to be on discount. So you're going to actually lose margin. So you're going to try to make more sales up with with sales volume instead of average value per order, because your average value per order is going to go down because of the discount. So with that being said, so if you start thinking about what happened last year, January is the time to raise your prices if necessary. Lots of weird stuff has been happening this year. So with tariffs ups and downs, so people are like consumer behavior is gonna, or not consumer behavior, but consumers are gonna kind of expect some kind of level of increasing of pricing because everybody's doing it. So they're just kind of getting accustomed to the new pricing. But in past, I like to do price increases maybe once or twice a year. Once like in around January, that's ideal because then when people have camel, what is it? Camel, is it camel, camel, camel? Yeah. And then like honey, like those tools, like consumers are being smart now. They can go into an Amazon listing, grab the ASIN. Some consumers know what an ASIN is now. They put it into those tools and then they can see the pricing, up and down. And then there's a video on TikTok naming your brand saying, oh, look, they raised the prices and then they discounted 20% and brought it back down to the regular MSRP that it was, like there's things on Amazon to stop people from doing that, but people still kind of do it. And then we're giving that whole like urban legend of what am I trying to say? Um, malicious pricing tactics, right?
Right.
So once we so if you do it in January, it just makes sense. Oh, cost of living goes up, whatever. Let's put it in January. So that's kind of what we're looking at. When you start thinking about it ahead, and then you kind of want to just bring in those 4 Ps, right? You want to start thinking about like, was our positioning good? Was our product good? Is our promotion good? All of those things, and then you have kind of the entire year to kind of play with certain things to bring you up to that main event, basically the Super Bowl. So you've been practicing all year. You get ready for the Super Bowl of fourth quarter. So right now, I guess I'm just gonna rambling here a little bit, but I mean that's what the
That's what a
podcasts are
podcast
about.
is for,
Yeah.
right? That's what it's meant to be.
Yeah. So I guess I don't even remember really the question at this point, but what I'm trying to say though is you want to just be prepared, like lead all the way into fourth quarter with all of these different strategies and tactics throughout the year.
Right, and that was the answer to the question actually that I asked. I had that written down on the side, so that was correct. You get a point.
Yeah. I was just so
Um,
obsessed with the pricing in January right after that, because like
right,
I like laser focus as James was like margin. I was like, margin.
right, and I do
Oh,
wanna
I got
get
to be doing that
to
later because
right.
Well, because we're already kind of talking about, sorry, real quick,
Yeah, yeah.
just kind of talking about that is because like Amazon, for everybody that's thinking about raising prices, because I think the tariffs are kind of up and down. I think they pushed it out 60 days, 30 days, or whatever's happening
Right.
right now. I'm confused on which one's being postponed, which one's coming up at this point. But if you guys are going to be raising your prices here shortly, get it done now because it's going to need 60 days for that price, the new price to index. So then when you do a discount in October, it'll say that 20% instead of going off of your was price, which then could be like 13% off.
Right.
So if you guys are going to do that, you need to get that done ASAP because I think last year, Prime Day in October was what, the 8th and the 9th?
Do you think those will be 4 days this year? The big deal
Uh,
days?
I'm guessing yes.
We'll see. That's a great kind of segue into my looking at consumer behavior and adjusting your marketing and pricing tactics. You kind of answered it a little bit already, but I do wanna hear some more thoughts. Due to the crazy adjustment that we had in Prime Day where it was 4 days and it was a weird 4 days where it was something completely different, kinda new. We're looking at consumer behaviors as well, and what we're looking at in quarter four is, of course, again, like I said, the most volatile season. How should brands be adjusting their marketing and really, again, you just talked about it a little bit already, but how should they be adjusting their marketing and pricing tactics to really capture a lot of the surge and a lot of the excitement that comes from shopping during quarter four?
Good question. Good question. Um, yeah,
I know it's a toughie.
yeah, that was a
There's
tough
not an
one,
answer.
Dave.
I don't have an answer written down for this one. There's not a
Yeah,
right
yeah,
answer here.
that's a tough one. No,
Right.
I think ultimately, uh, through your data, through your research, you some of those you already have the information because the post deals throughout the year, you and you should be doing this anyway. You're monitoring your competitors' pricing, right? Um, but also, and on the client standpoint, is you should already know if your clients are profitable or not, know what their margins are, right? Because ultimately, obviously the biggest bang is giving a better discount during those special events,
Right.
right? But so the client's going to have to adjust their margin. Some say, hey, we operate on a 40% margin, that's it, or 30% margin. Maybe just say, hey, during these particular events only. So if you add up, big deal week, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, let's say they are a week, you have probably selling days, maybe 14 days, right? Let's just say you've had from October and then November and December, whatever. Um, Work off a 15% margin, gross profit margin, right? You don't have to necessarily have the 30 and always have the 30. Yeah, I think you can get indexing, you get BSR increase, you get additional page views. Maybe someone will add on to subscribe and save. It really depends, but I would say, if you are operating between a 30 and 35% margin, why not just operate just during those events only at a 15% margin? That could be a strategy to use. But again, they might not have it, or there could be something. I think we've mentioned this multiple times on the podcast, is what else do they have in the warehouse that they're sick and tired of looking at, that you can run a big discount on 50, 60% off. Use it and use it that as a halo. There's so many different options, and I'm sure your client does. I don't think they run super lean. I'm sure during inventory, quarterly inventory checks in the warehouse, the CEO or logistics manager or whoever, it it's a topic. It always is. There's always one product or two products that are just sitting there,
Right.
that is recouping, and it's a cost to them. They probably lost so much money because it's taken up so much space. So I would say, just ultimately just kind of running those big promos, operating at a lower margin, um, and use that to your advantage.
Right. It's like when you're making a stew and you look in the back of the refrigerator and there's a random onion. You say, just put it in there. Just get rid of it. Get rid of it. Chop it up. Get rid of it. It's
Well, chefs do this all the time,
right.
right? whatever didn't sell, they always make a soup or stew
Get
out of
rid of
it the
it.
next day,
Use
right?
it for
They
something. And
maximize your spend,
right.
your revenue.
And getting some margin on it is better than getting no margin. So,
Correct. And you're probably losing margin daily
right.
anyway.
On it, just sitting in
So
there. Yeah. So get rid of those onions in the back of your fridge. Bottom line. But yeah, so and again, kind of talking more about also again the important aspect of advertising. Again, like Eric mentioned, you should be planning out, and this is I think especially for sure of advertising. I was hoping one of you would mention this, but you should be planning your advertising budget for the beginning of the year or for the entire year right after Q4, right in the beginning of Q1. You might make adjustments to it. It might be wrong. It might, you might tweak it here and there. You might see it in an unusual spike, and you might want to reinvest a lot more than you already planned. But you should have a rough idea of your advertising budget. Looking at Q4, what is worth, let's say, doubling down on, and what's not. Like, what are we looking at for as far as just spending wise in advertising, and is it becoming a pay to play area? And is it? I mean, it already is a pay to play area, but what are we seeing? What are we seeing this year maybe that we've noticed so far, again, the beginning of August, that is going to be affected in Q4 for advertising?
It's one of those things where you just got to kind of determine what your overall strategy is, what your overall goal is, what your overall like branding is, right? Some brands are premium, some brands are economy, some brands never go on promotion, some brands, occasionally. Like there's different layers of that, right? So depending on whatever you're doing, depends on if you're going to advertise or not. And if you say, "Hey, we have like with James' example just recent or just previously, we said, "Hey, you got this excess inventory in the back." Well, it's not moving because of whatever reasons. You might want to push some ad spend on that, or just see if you can like get rid of it at 40% off and let it just be organically, and then you don't spend any money on it. It really just is going to depend on your strategy. I would say that you just always want to kind of keep that consistent 8 to 14% tacos and run through that. Don't I mean Unless your strategy is maybe you want to grab some BSR, then maybe go to that 20-25% tacos, but you're going to lose a little bit unless you have an incredible margin, right? But but just depends on the strategy that you're trying to do. We always kind of say that, but it really does matter on what you're trying to accomplish. So if I'm trying to increase my BSR and then do a short-term loss for a long-term gain, then I'm going to push in that tacos. If I'm not, I'm going to keep it at that 8 to 14%. It's like a normal day, except for everybody's on sale, really. And there's just a lot of traffic. So you don't necessarily need to do anything crazy unless you're seeing something in the numbers. Maybe your competitor that you guys keep, button heads on is doing something super aggressive. Then you got to kind of maybe crank it up. But if you don't have margin there, you don't want to just like keep up with the Joneses just to keep up with the Joneses. Your margin is tanking the more you crank up. And maybe after the end of the 4 days or the 5 days or 20 days, whatever it's going to be, you might be in the red. So the whole thing is be profitable, do what you're comfortable with, and kind of let the chips lay where they fall, or whatever that saying is. Also, I highly recommend using Seller Board and constantly checking that throughout the day. That will kind of show you if you are in the red or black
Right,
as you work through it.
right. James, again, I always feel like James has something to add, but I
I
can't
don't have
really
anything to
know.
add. That was
Eric's
exactly.
always got a great answer. Like I said, Eric has the answers. He's stolen the answer key from my Google Doc that I
It's
have
right here.
written down. He stole it. Yeah,
No, it's right here. I'm an old man.
Uh,
I
I
have
always got it
some
written
writing
down
I got mine too.
on pen and paper.
and post-its.
No.
So many post-its. Yep.
Anyway, we're gonna move on before you ask me to show my pen and paper. Looking at afterwards. So we've had it. It's Q4 is over. It's maybe the December 26th. We'll say. People have opened their presents. And we could also talk about gift card season, but I think we've covered that already. I want to get into something that we maybe haven't touched on quite a bit is returns. Is there anything realistically? I know Amazon offers the whole 30-day guaranteed return policy. Is there anything you can do to minimize return loss in January after the Q4 rush? And is it something that should worry brands?
Yeah. There is, and it's it goes it's prep. Be prepared, right?
Right.
So Think of it this way. If you constantly have a return for X problem, that X problem is going to be returned times Y, which is your Amazon Black Friday sales number. So if you're constantly at 15% of your returns are, I bought a large, but I need an extra large, then you need to identify that problem on your listing before you go into the event. Otherwise, you're going to have a bad time. Well, I guess maybe not a bad time. You'll have It'll be exactly the time that you
It'll be it'll
are allowing it to be for not being proactive.
it'll be bad. We can just say it'll be bad.
Yeah.
It'll be
Yeah.
horrible.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
great
So
example too with clothing and the size chart. Always have a size
yeah.
chart on your clothing
Well,
listings. What are we doing?
if
Um,
the other thing too is like with clothing and like shoes and all that stuff, people are gonna buy too. And
right,
especially if that uncle that doesn't really know you anymore, they're gonna buy you something that you're not gonna like.
right,
So make sure that you're telling your uncle what you like this year, but also more importantly, make sure that you have very precise details on your product detail page so the customer has a better buying educated experience.
that's gonna be the thumbnail. Is make sure you tell your uncle what you want this year. That's gonna be the quote
Well,
on the episode.
well,
But
you need you need to change your uncle or find a new uncle if he's buying you apparel during the gifting
that's true. I feel
season.
like uncles
I don't want
usually
a
are
shirt from my uncle. You know
right.
what I mean? I'm not buying a shirt, but if you do, right? Ultimately, I think Eric's right. What you could do is look at your voice of the customer, look at your constant returns. How do you mitigate that? You're gonna he get a massive spike in January, parts of February. What's gonna happen is those are gonna hit. So
Right,
let's say you generate $30,000 in revenue that month and you're like, yeah, I'm killing it. And then all of a sudden you have $10,000 in returns. That's no fun. That's no fun when you look at your payment report from Amazon and notice that there you got a high level of returns. But you can dedicate a bullet point to the most common return questions, dedicate that bullet point, update, imagery. If it's a size chart, make another size chart,
right,
put it in A plus a size chart, do a video of a size chart,
right,
try to get ahead of it. But ultimately what you want is that whole flood into the new season. You're going to be even more worse off if you don't have that good push coming out of Q4 into Q1. That impact's going to be a lot greater in regards to the returns. So you want to be set up for that. But yeah, just know your customer, know what's wrong with your products or the common return rate is, so forth. And that should be an ongoing thing you're doing throughout the year
right,
anyway. So it shouldn't be just, oh, January we're going to get a lot of returns, so we're going to update our listings. Yeah, and because that stuff should happen before Q4, right? You should be doing that. Though all those listing updates that you want to do should be happening in the next 60 to 80, 90 days from now. You know what I mean? During this time period. Um, yeah, you don't want to touch a listing, especially copy updates or anything like that during
I was
Q4.
gonna say, my other one of my content questions, but before I get into that too, of looking, before I get into the content question of talking about looking at the reviews, seeing what are people complaining about, and I think we've covered that a lot as well. But
Can
looking,
we jump into that a little?
yeah, please, please, please,
Dude, yeah. So here's what I always get. Here's what I get is that um going back on the the return refunds situation that we're kind of talking about too is and the listing and all this stuff kind of works in tandem in the reviews. So when you as a business owner know your product so well, you know it in and out. You probably don't understand somebody that doesn't understand your product, how they don't understand your product,
right,
right? So you're going to the listing looking at it like you know the product. And so when you see the review, don't be the guy that says, well, they're an idiot.
right,
They didn't use it right. How are they supposed to know how to use it if you're not telling them clearly and precisely how to use the product? So make sure that you optimize those bullet points. If you have a technical product, make sure that you're writing out everything in the layman's term. Make sure that you have image stacks that describe that. There's a Q&A section. If you have a brand story and A plus content on all your listings, you get A plus premium. There's an FAQ section. Make sure you're filling that out. If you have a high tech product, like just a whole lineup, if you're selling TVs or computers or something else like car parts, any sort of thing that's very technical, make that comparison chart. Say you'll need this one for this. If you're selling Chevy parts and this one is a Ford part, make sure that you say what that is. And there's also a place where you can upload manuals in PDF form onto the listing. The consumer can just, download that. Or again, I think James mentioned like a video. Put a video on there, how to install the product. Make sure that your dimensions are right. All of these things will help with these returns.
Yeah, just to add to that, Eric, good points. Uh, do an insert. If you haven't done an insert yet, make an insert QR code of a how-to
Right.
to address, that way when they get the product, before they write a bad review or do anything like that, they can scan the QR code and it might save you a return. No, there's no guarantee, but if your uncle bought the wrong size, he bought the wrong size just because he's not a good uncle.
Right.
So,
And he's
you're
buying
gonna
you
have to,
apparel. He should be buying
yeah.
you a flamethrower or something. No, don't buy that. Something fun. I feel like a fun uncle will get you not a button-down shirt. Unless it's a really
Well,
cool
fun
button-down
uncles get the
shirt
most noisiest. If you have little kids, they'll get the noisiest toy that they can find, which
on
I totally
purpose.
agree with.
On
Do
Yes,
purpose.
it.
you have to
That's
do
the
that.
I
You
plan.
mean,
have to do it.
Pete, what's more fun than a button-down Hawaiian shirt?
I do.
Oh, that's true though.
You know,
I'll sport that.
That
I'll
should come
sport
from
that
your
all day.
aunt. That should come
that's an
from a
ant.
second
That's an
cousin.
ant.
That should
Okay.
not be coming from an
Okay.
uncle. The uncle should be getting
Okay.
you the plane to fly to Hawaii in the Hawaiian shirt.
Oh,
The aunt
jeez.
should be providing the apparel because let's face it, girls dress better. I do not know how to dress. Maddie, my fiance, love her. She helps me pick out my outfits. I do not know how to dress. So I should not be buying apparel for anybody else when I
That
can't even do
explains a
it.
lot.
Right, exactly. I just wear the Velocity shirts. This is this is what I wear. If you ever watch the podcast, all 80 episodes plus, I'm wearing Velocity shirts for a large majority of them. This is all I own. This and Philly stuff. Go Phils. Um, but no, yes, it is paramount. I can't tell you when I was a brand manager how many times I got simple praise for saying, "Hey, what if we had a size chart on this clothing brand?" And they're like, "Oh my god, it's a great idea." Um, so that's one of my very few claims to
Claim
fame.
to flames.
No.
Claim to flamethrowers.
Claim to flame.
Yes. To kind of also talk about mistakes, because I love this is a great topic because I think people watch this episode or watch these episodes to say, what mistakes am I making right now? What mistakes should I not be making in a few months? What is, and we talked about a couple of them already, but what is a common mistake that we see all the brands make, whether it be going against our advice or something much worse? What is a common mistake that most brands will make, and how can they either rectify it or better yet, how can they be proactive and avoid those mistakes coming into, again, the biggest shopping Amazon season of the year?
Aside from the big one, like just no, no, I don't know I don't know what you're gonna say, but I'll let you
Say
say
it.
it. So like the big one is like what we just kind of talked about, where it's just like, oh, the customer doesn't, they're just not using it right.
Right.
Don't do that.
Right.
Right. Put yourself in their shoes. Figure that out. Like, don't point fingers at somebody else. Like, especially too, like if Amazon takes your listing down and they're like, oh, wow, it's like, well, we didn't have that SDS, we didn't do this, we didn't have this, the compliance or whatever. Make sure that you're ready for those consequences. Um, I'm just trying to think of like a really good one. Like, I think one of them is forgetting the vision or mission of the brand is a good one,
Okay.
because it's like because like Amazon, it's like, okay, we're just trying to move products. It's like, well, is that what the brand really wants to do? Like what got you excited in the morning when you were like, I'm gonna make a business today and it's gonna be great. I'm gonna fill in this niche and this open and position myself, blah blah, blah blah blah. And then we're in Amazon and they're like, where's my sales? Like, where's the branding?
Right.
Where's your branding? What's happening there? So that's a good one. I'm gonna pass it back to James so I can think on this question. This is a good question.
Thank you.
It is a really good question.
You try. It is my
Yeah,
job.
I I guess Eric did hint on it. Uh, have purpose and have a mission of what you want to accomplish, right? Just don't, for the sake of running a deal, just don't run a deal. What's the real purpose behind the deal, right? Or what are you trying to move, essentially. Where they make the mistake is it's not just Amazon is where I see a lot
Mm,
of brands, they just they maybe sometimes too microed on Amazon, but you need some of that extra love on social media, right? I think that's where a lot of people, the disconnect is. And when you do that on social media, sometimes they're not doing it right, right? Sometimes they're just throwing promotions and it's a promotion post. What content do you have? What is your brand voice? Like Eric said, what are you trying to accomplish with your brand? What's your messaging? It doesn't have to be always be a promo. Like even on your email blast to your customers, are you just sending them constant sales through every week or every bi-weekly? It should be, it's, you got to earn that right to ask for a sale, right? So give them something, give them 3 posts of content, really good content, that's geared towards your brand or product, or is it solving an issue, or it's helping somebody in their daily life.
right.
um and create that buzz, off platform, because you're going to get a halo across all your platforms, your marketplaces, your omni channel in general. um me think of another one. Eric, did you
Let
think
me
of another one?
yeah, I'm gonna piggyback on that. So I got 2 of them.
Back and forth.
One is yeah, and I was gonna write it down. It's website. I'm writing it down right now, guys. Website and then brand authenticity. Okay, so we'll go back to the website one. I always hear, to piggyback off James's social media thing, everybody goes, I get more margin pushing to my website. And I'm like, oh yeah, like sure,
Cool.
obviously, but what's your sales?
Right.
Is 90% of your sales on Amazon and 10% of your sales are on your website? Maybe push more people to Amazon and maybe you're going to make a lot more money that way. You're still going to get people going to your website because there's anti Amazon people that'll go to the website, but there's also people that go for the website, go to the Amazon. So you as long as you're making the sale, like who really kind of cares? Unless you're such a well-known brand that people are googling your brand without you advertising it, or they're searching for you with, like that you just have that brand recognition. Anybody else push everybody to Amazon at least for the first couple of years. You're gonna get a lot more sales that way. Your margin is gonna be down a little bit, but the other thing too is that when you push from social media, that counts as an organic sale because Amazon doesn't know that it's really like a paid advertisement from Facebook. You're gonna get that BSR bump. Plus, you get that attribution link, and if you use that correctly, you're gonna get about 10% back. So it's not as bad as everybody thinks. So please start doing that. Um, the other thing is brand authenticity. So just because you saw a Kardashian do it doesn't mean that you should do it. I don't even know if Kardashians are they even
You should
like in the
actually
thing
I have no
anymore.
you should
idea.
actually if you see a Kardashian do it, you should
Yeah.
not do it. You should do the
Yeah.
opposite of whatever they're doing.
Right. Okay. I don't know who's like super famous right now. I,
Timothy
I don't know.
Chalamet.
Pete.
Okay,
Timothy
Timothy Chalamet.
Chalamet.
Yep, I hear he's doing stuff. So was he in Dune 3?
Dune
Is that it?
3, Part 3, and if you note the
Yeah.
name of the part Dune 3, Part 3, it's a
Yeah.
callback to how it's the 3rd movie of the trilogy.
That's fantastic. Okay. More movies should actually do that instead of being called the same thing they used to be called. Anyway,
Right.
Yeah.
um,
Mhm.
so if you're like, I don't know, if you're a certain specific kind of product, don't be copying other people. That's not how you win followers. You have to, you first thing that you did when you built out your business plan was a mission and vision and branding and all of that stuff. Stay within that lane, be authentic, and if you and people can tell when you're forcing it. People hate that stuff. It drives people away from you. So make sure that you're staying within that branding. And if you do it, and at first you might not get a lot of views, but repetition and you stay on brand, you will win. And if you want an example, like look at what is it, that blender, will it blend? The
Mm.
answer is yes, it will.
Yes.
Spoiler
Yeah.
alert, maybe.
It could be a spoiler
Yeah.
for the
No,
entire
great
content.
points, Eric. Just to kind of piggyback what you were saying in regards to advertising,
Mhm.
right? Um why do you think Coke still has tens of millions of dollars a month advertising budget?
Great example.
It's one of the most recognizable brands ever, but they still advertise because, we're human, we forget for some reason. Um what Coke actually is, or could be impulse purchase at that point. Be like, oh, they should know my brand, but sometimes you might be in that buying cycle, the purchase mindset, and you all of a sudden you see the ad pop up, or it follows you, or wherever it goes.
Right.
Um, so you definitely want to be on the advertising side. And another thing made me think a little bit, what brands don't do very well is their Amazon store. They don't do that very well. Why, if you're going to advertise, why just advertise to maybe three product sets, or one particular product? Of course, do that. Um, but advertise to a storefront. Put your deal page in there. Do some arrows and some call to actions if you can within Amazon's terms of service. That way you have a chance of increasing your average order volume. I'm always looking for, if I'm going to buy like a charger, right? I'm going to probably look for a cord. I'm going to probably look for, something that's unique or whatever. So I might go in buying one thing, but if I land on a page and be like, oh, there's other deals that this brand is offering, I might be like, man, I'm going to just buy three of them.
Load the cart up.
Being a good uncle I am, I'm
Right.
always looking to buy multiple products for my cousins and nephews and
Right.
nieces. So think of your shopper. Think of how the shopper buys,
Right.
right? I'm lazy.
Right.
If I could buy three things or cover three people or four people on my shopping list all in by one purchase, that's what I'm going to go do,
Easy.
right?
Easy.
Easy peasy. Make it
100% the same
easy.
way myself. All my shopping is
Yeah, I'm
done.
super lazy.
All my shopping is done by Cyber Monday or the day after. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah, exactly. But you wanna see what else that person's offering, because if they're offering you a 25% discount or a 20% discount off one item, there's a good chance all the other items that they do have available are all at a discount as well.
right.
So,
And you're saying
yeah,
that from the eyes of a consumer to the brands, they should be
absolutely.
discounting the
Absolutely.
majority of their catalog. Yes, focus on the best sellers primarily, but don't leave out the rest of the products as well. And
We'll do an internal focus group. Grab your
right.
employees, do a survey, get a brown bag lunch, buy them lunch, okay? And say, "Hey, how do you buy product?"
Mhm.
And give them scenarios and do your
Right.
own investigative work, kind of figure out who your customers are. So anyway,
Right.
that's a
Love it.
good
I,
food for thought.
Now I'm hungry.
I
I know,
did
me too.
I did think of another one
Yes.
that this is not necessarily for the Prime Day and fourth quarter, but it is one thing that the brands often make the biggest mistake on is imagery. For whatever reason, we have, there's certain brands that just don't want to take new pictures,
Yep.
and that's not gonna fly anymore.
No.
Maybe in 2012, maybe,
Nah.
maybe when you just put it online and it would sell because it's online and it's
It's
cool, it's
fun.
new.
Right.
At
Yeah.
this point, if you do not have high def images that actually add value, there's only so much advertising and there's only so much SEO can do. You know,
Right.
that all that puts butts in the seats, images convert. And so if we go back to that advertising question, if you're pushing ad spend to a listing that has blurry images, one image, maybe two images, advertising ain't gonna help you. So
Right.
if your conversion rate is below the average, and I think on what Amazon's like 5%, some categories are higher or lower or whatever. If you're below that,
Mhm.
there's something wrong.
Right.
You're either advertising to the wrong people, or you just don't have high quality images or images that will answer a question for the buyer to make a good decision.
Right.
Or you're overpriced, right?
Could
There's
be.
there's so many. You could be, but there chances are it's definitely start with the imagery. Eric is 1000% right. It's, man, I wish I was a photographer in a former life, a product photographer.
Be raking it in.
Because that's definitely a business I would
Yeah.
have gotten. But now you have AI, so Play with these image AI tools if you don't have good imagery, right? And you'll be like, oh, I don't have a lot of resources. Hey, there's a lot of free stuff out there on the internet. Just
Right.
But I mean, but like, just hire a guy. Like, hire a
Use your
guy.
iPhone.
It's
Use your phone or
yeah,
anybody.
sorry.
Hire they,
Hire.
them.
I
Anything.
would say this: hire
Cut
a
that.
professional. Just hire a
yes,
professional.
there you go. A pro.
Right.
Hire a pro.
Cut right to the
It'll
part where we
cost
said
you.
hire a pro.
Yeah, it'll cost you $2 to $5 grand depending on how many pictures you got and if you want people in there or whatever. And you can shoot. You could probably get, an 8-hour day. You could probably get 800 pictures that you can use on everything for the next 3-4 years.
Right. And it's a small investment. And when you look at it over the course of how many images you got
Yes.
and how many years you're going to use them for, it's a
Yes.
worthwhile investment for sure. I
Yes.
always say content's more important than advertising. Again, sorry, advertising team. The content is what sells. So definitely. And again, we mentioned just as a disclaimer, do not be changing your content in Q4. Amazon needs time to evaluate it and rank it and give you points or not for the SEO, the bullet points, the images, all that stuff.
I want to say this. If you got nothing on your listing, you should change it in fourth quarter.
Oh, yeah. That should be done beforehand, but yeah.
Yes. If you're late to the game, maybe you're waiting for some whatever, and you signed up for Amazon in November.
You wait for the first
whatever.
snowfall, and you're saying, now I'll take images and then post them. Silly, but sure. You want to always have something on the listing, but don't be, if you have something already, don't be changing it so that you don't want Amazon's algorithm trying to learn it in the middle of it, trying to rank you. So,
yes.
But yeah. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining, as always, and giving us kind of a rundown on how you should be ready for Q4. I appreciate you hopping on, sharing your wisdom as always. And yeah. Thanks for coming on.
You got time. You got time, everybody. You got about 30 to 45 days to get your listings up and ready to go. So don't waste it.
There's
Just
still
get
time.
in there. There's still time.
But it's running out shortly.
Not much
quickly.
time, but
not much.
Quickly.
Yep.
Right. That'll be the thumbnail instead of the other one that I already forgot. But yeah, that'll be the thumbnail.
Something about your uncle?
Something about the uncle.
Isn't it your uncle?
Something about the uncle. Bob is your uncle. No, that'll be the thumbnail. You have time, but it's running out quickly. I can see it now. I can see the headline now. But yeah, gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you all for watching. I am your host, Velocity Pete, and we will see you next week.